Hey there YouTube, this is Patrick and I hope you guys are having a great day, and welcome to my new series that I'm bringing back again. I did it a long time ago, but we're bringing it back, and this is going to be plugin to review. And today we're going to start with a special one. We're going to be looking at the Slate Digital Virtual Mix Racks Preamp series. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so a part of the preamp series, there's actually two different preamps we're going to be looking at. The FG73, which is based off of a Neve 1073, and the FG76, which is based off the Telefunken V76. And I'll go ahead and show a little bit clip first right now of the 1073. This has been very popular. Neve's consoles were used all over the place. For me, when I think of the Neve consoles, I think of Sound City, the console that they used to have, now that Dave Grohl actually owns. And then we also, the next video you'll see here is going to be the FG76, which is the V76, again, made by Telefunken, which were preamps that they used, and their stuff was used all the time in studios like Abbey Roads and such. So, with that said, we now have these analog preamps that we can use in our own DAW. Now, you might be thinking, a preamp, this is what we use in order to turn the gain up on a microphone before it goes into your digital workstation. So how is that being applicable here? Well, what we're doing is, instead of worrying about the gain, all we're going to do is use the color that these different types of preamps used to be able to provide. So these were widely known for providing some sort of special characteristics, specifically the Neve 73, adding a little bit of warmth to your sound, and the V76 also having some nice characteristics as well. So what I have here set up here in Pro Tools is actually, we're going to be doing two different things. One, we're going to be using Q-Clone, and what Q-Clone is going to do is allow us to go ahead and measure on an EQ standpoint what these different preamps are doing, what the EQ curve is, and we can see that type of color it's introducing to your microphone sounds. Then I also have some vocals that I recorded for my own personal project that I've volunteered to share for this, and we're going to go ahead and use that on here to see what kind of difference it might actually make. I have the vocal chain here. We'll do some processing and some without. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, so what we're going to go ahead and do is start looking at the FG73, and I have Q-Clone here. Now, if you don't know what Q-Clone is, it's a tool that allows you to capture the EQ curve of what is generally supposed to be used for outboard instruments. So let's say if you had an outboard EQ and you wanted to use this across several different tracks, but again, you only have one, you can use Q-Clone to run a signal through it, capture the EQ curve after all your adjustments, save it, and then use your EQ again on another track if you wanted to. But where this is also excellent is for measuring to see what kind of response or EQ curve we can get even in the box with Pro Tools, or with any DAW. So what we have here is this signal that's being fed from Q-Clone, and it's going into this aux track where I have the virtual mix rack, where I have these two different preamps, and they're both bypassed right now. And then that's getting looped back into here. Hence why we have transmitting and receiving. And then Q-Clone over here, when we have this set to capture, will now capture anything that we do. And just to demonstrate here, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up an EQ. Let's take a look and see what that does. All right, so right now we just have the simple Pro Tools EQ, but you'll notice here, if I go ahead and start to pull down this frequency, you'll start to see that change happening here in the EQ. And if I hold this, and then I go ahead and get rid of this EQ, we still have this EQ curve that will be applicable and stay until I let go of it. So that's what we're going to be using to measure what we're doing here with these preamps. So let's go ahead and start with looking at the FG73. I'm going to turn it on and let's see what happens on Q-Clone. All right, so I'm going to turn that on and off. You can see there's just a slight bump. It's kind of hard to see here with Q-Clone because it's not zoomed in a lot, but you can see here a little bit. There's a slight bump here in the low end, and that's that warmth that people talk about when it comes to Neve preamps and stuff. Now, if we go ahead and drive this, though, something interesting happens. So we're going to go ahead and really start to crank this. So you can start to see we're adding essentially what is distortion to the track right now. Now, you guys can't hear it, and the reason why is because I don't want you to hear the signal loop, but you'll be able to hear it better when we actually use it on the vocals. But right now, we're just going to go ahead and look visually what it's doing. Let's crank this all the way and see how much of a dirty signal we can get. Yeah, and you can see we're really driving this right now. So what we can then do is go ahead and pull back to a level that we think is acceptable. And then we can use the trim if we need to for gain staging, whatever we need to do. So that right there is what it looks like when we're using the FG73, again, mocking the 1073 from Neve. Now let's go ahead and look at the FG76. All right, so now that we have the FG76 in front of us, let's go ahead and turn it on and see what it does inside of QClone. All right, so you can see there was a little bit of a shift there. I'm going to turn that back off and take a look what happens. So that is our quote-unquote flat curve right there. And when I go ahead and turn on, you can see there's a slight lift here. I don't know if it's the gain overall that's being pushed up, but I do see a slight bump here that's happening again, also in the low end. And it looks like there was a slight rise in the high end. Let's turn that off. Yeah, you can see right here a slight rise. So giving a little bit of airiness to it as well. Let's go ahead and turn up the virtual drive and see what happens. All right, so you can start to see as I really start to push it, everything here, it looks like from above 500 hertz, the gain is getting pulled up a little bit there. So you're getting a lot more of the mids and highs. And it looks like we're getting a little bit of a cut on the low end below, I would say maybe about 60 hertz, and then a slight boost as well. Let's drive it all the way. There you go. And that way you can really see that EQ curve of what's going on. So yeah, we're cutting the lows, and then we have some slight bumps, some variations that are going on. And then again, at that top end, we're getting a little bit of a raise and some variation between the mids and highs there. Let's go ahead and drop that back down. All right. So now that we know visually what these plugins are doing, what we want to do is actually hear what it's doing on a vocal track. So let's go ahead and jump over to this vocal and listen to what it's going to do. Okay. Okay, so now we have our vocal track here. I have both the FG73 and the FG76. They are bypassed. The only thing that I have on right now is going to be this microphone that I'm using. I have the Slate ML2, really nice microphone. I'll go ahead and do a review on that later and go ahead and show you why I like that microphone so much. It's great, especially for today in the modern era of recording vocals, home studios, it's great. But aside from that, let's go ahead and take a listen to what this has. Now we do have some processing. We have some EQ that's going on, kind of controlling the lows here. We also do have gain reduction as a compressor. This is a rock track, so I wanted some pretty good compression. We have a little bit of delay here using the standard Pro Tools delay. And lastly, Seventh Heaven, a badass, I mean, truly badass reverb. So, and let's go ahead and take a listen to what this sounds like without any of those pre's. Here we go.
My woes, I gotta let them go. They're taking over control. If I'm not addicted to my vices, then I'm addicted to my woes. I gotta let them go. They're heavy on my soul. If I'm not addicted to my vices, then I'm addicted to my woes.
Awesome. So that's the chorus. I'm pretty happy with the way my vocals sound. Yes, there is some tuning and processing that's going on, but nothing that's going to be affecting that's what we're working on here today. But again, as much as I like it, let's see if we can add a little bit more color to it. And what I'll do, just so that way we're hearing very clearly, I'm going to bypass everything first, so that way all we have is just the microphone. Should be about the same gain staging, so the volume shouldn't really change too much. And let's turn on this FG73 and crank it and see what we can get out of it.
My woes, I gotta let them go. They're taking over control.
This is off. Let's turn it back on.
If I'm not addicted to my vices, then I'm addicted to my woes. I gotta let them go. They're
This is
heavy
really
on
driving
my
it.
soul. If I'm not addicted to my vices, then I'm addicted to my...
So I think right there at about 45, I think it sounds good to me. You can definitely hear that it's giving a little bit more body. Now I will say that the when I was recording the vocals, they already had a lot of low end kind of going into it. So it might be a little bit much, but let's go ahead and now listen to this again. I'll bypass this on and off with all the additional processing. So now we have our EQ, our compressor, delay, and reverb. Let's go ahead and start with off and on. I'll toggle it, and that way you'll see, and you can also hear.
My woes, I gotta let
turn it on.
them go. They're taking over control.
Let's turn it off.
If I'm not addicted to my vices, then I'm addicted
Back
to
on.
my woes. I gotta let them go.
Awesome. I think that actually sounds pretty good. So you can probably hear it's a little subtle, but it definitely adds a little bit more body to my vocals, and I like that a lot. So now the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is use the FG76 and see what kind of sound we can get with that. Let's do it. Okay, same process as last time. I've turned off all the other processing and I've turned off the FG73. So we're going to go ahead and just drive this thing and then pull it back, right? To drive it, we're just doing that just to hear what kind of saturation we can get, and then we're going to go ahead and find an acceptable overall tone. So let's do it.
My woes, I gotta let them go. They're taking over control. If I'm not addicted to my vices, then
I gotta say, I don't mean to pause it here, but even with it cranked all the way, it doesn't sound like it's doing nearly as much distortion as like what it was doing with the FG73. Still sounds pretty good. So now I'm gonna go ahead and pull it back and see if we can find an area that we want to go ahead and keep this virtual drive at.
my woes,
Oh, there it is.
I gotta let them go. They're taking over control.
Without?
If I'm not addicted to my vices, then I'm addicted to my woes. I gotta let them go.
And I think I can hear a little bit of that slight presence that we saw earlier in Q-Clone, and I like it right here at about where it says, I guess it's 46. So let's go ahead and add the other processing on, and let's see what we got. All right, here we go.
My woes, I gotta let them go.
Sounds really good. Let's do it without.
They're taking over control. If I'm not addicted to my vices, then I'm addicted to my woes. I gotta let them go.
This is off. Let's turn it back on.
They're heavy on my soul.
Okay, so that is what the FG76 sounds like. Me personally, I think for this specific song and this application, the FG76 sounds best to me. That's not to knock on the FG73. I think that sounds really good as well. I think just because of the source material, I already had a lot of lows that were going into the microphone while I was recording. It gave it more additional warmth that maybe I didn't need it at the time. But again, if I was using a different source material, something that had a little bit more treble in it, then the FG73 would be a great selection to be able to give it a little bit more body to it. So it sounds really, really good. Now let's talk about one last thing here before we wrap up this video. Obviously I'm using the ML2 microphone, which is supposed to be essentially a linear microphone. That way you can go ahead and add these different emulation microphones to it. But what if you don't have this mic? What are you to do? How can you use this in your mix to be able to add some color to it? Well, the thing is, you don't need the ML2. All you need is to be able to use these preamps to add that little bit of color that these, very well-known consoles used to add. So you've seen different types of consoles emulation, such as the Waves NLS. This is something similar to that, where you're just trying to add some more color and life to it. I guarantee you, if you were to put this on a drum track, let's say if you recorded it using all just maybe Shure microphones, I know they make like a drum kit set. And if you were to pass that through like your 8-channel preamp, whether it's a Personas or a Focusrite, and you added these to your tracks after recording them into it, it'll give it a little bit more life and body, and you can play around. Maybe the snare, you want to have the FG76 to add a little bit more high end to it, or maybe the toms, you want a little bit more boominess, so you add the FG73. You can play around with these different things. So anyways, with that said, that concludes our first video back of the plugin to review, and we'll be going through the rest of the Slate stuff, and then we'll be moving on to some of the most popular stuff with Waves as well. With that being said, this is Patrick, and I hope you have a great day. Make sure to subscribe and like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much. See you later.